Welcome to, what are we welcoming to? To Democracy 2.0 with Wayne Bouchard. And this is Malcolm Berman on malcolmpresents.com, a streaming portal to the new world of Zoom casting. Anyway, welcome, Wayne. Anything new this week you want to talk about?
Yeah, very little happened in the areas of democracy, politics, government. Kind of a quiet week.
Yeah, by the way, just to fill people in, if you don't know what we're talking, 2 days after the midterm elections,
Yes, today is November 10th,
November 10th, 2022.
2022, and we just had an election, and I have to say that I was pleasantly surprised. I also have to admit that I was grossly wrong, and that's difficult for me to do. I expected and I shared this, last week and probably the week before. I expected the Democrats to get beat handily, and they didn't.
You and most of the pundits.
So, I thought we would talk about the election. Who were the biggest winners and who were the biggest losers?
Well, for people who didn't run, I think one of the biggest losers is are the ex-presidents who shall not be mentioned.
Who shall not be named. Yes, I think, and it's just my humble opinion, is that the biggest winner was democracy, and the republic, the American people, and the truth came out on top as big winners. And it was, as I said, I was surprised, very, very surprised.
Well, I want to see now. I haven't heard anybody really suing, saying that the election was fixed.
Oh, there
I'm
were a
giving it
couple of
time.
lawsuits. Oops.
Have you heard of anybody saying that yet?
I think, well, there was a lawsuit filed in Arizona by the Republican Party, but the judge, and I think they were trying to get an extended poll closing, and I think the judge turned it down. But I'm not exactly certain of whether he granted them the extension or he turned it down.
No, I haven't heard it, so I don't know.
I have heard rumblings from Carrie Lake about something being not quite right, and she's running for governor in Arizona. So,
Well, I don't get in Arizona, the vote's not going to be in for another week. I don't get it. I don't get why they don't. Arizona, I think Nevada.
Arizona and Nevada, I think the issue comes down to there are different laws in different states. Every state has their own election laws, and Arizona. There's some other states that fall into this category, but they don't count because they're not that important in the scheme of things. They do not, in Arizona, they do not allow them to count early ballots or mail-in ballots, which are all early ballots, until after the election, after the polls are closed and all the other ballots have been counted.
That I don't understand.
Well, it's just the way their laws are written, and the same thing in Nevada. So they have hundreds of in Maricopa County, Arizona. I think yesterday morning they had 400,000 early ballots that had not been counted.
I mean, I can see where they don't announce.
Correct.
The
Yeah,
count.
that would that would give some people sway.
Right, because that's what they did from. I mean, I remember when I moved out to Los Angeles, the big thing was that the election was, some of the national elections were over before they even closed the voting places in Los Angeles because of the 3 hour difference. And
Yeah.
then the networks decided not to announce who won the various states.
Hmm.
But not to count until they count the regular voting, and that doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, and I think that's what helps foster these claims of fraud, and there's some hanky panky going on because it takes so long.
Yeah, and sometimes there's a big change in who won or who lost. I think that's what.
Well, if you've been watching the results, you find out that in the last election, the early voters voted for no, the late early voters. In other words, the ones that voted late in the cycle, like on election day. In
Yeah,
other words, you could drop your ballot, your mail-in ballot, in the mailbox on election day,
yeah,
as long as it's postmarked on election day. A lot of those people in the last election ended up voting for Trump. So even though, like in Arizona and Nevada, Biden had these huge leads, well, not huge leads, but he had a substantial lead. They were whittled down when they started counting these late early ballots. And I've noticed today that I think it was both Maricopa County and Clark County, Nevada, the Democrats have been gaining ground, and that's contrary to the last election. So who the hell?
Trump. I think this was in Arizona, where in the middle of the night they brought in hundreds of thousands of ballots and they snuck it under the table.
Yeah, that was a bogus claim.
And he's funny now. I can't. I heard him say some things. It was Hannity's fault that he lost. That people that he backed lost, and I forget the exact reason.
I didn't hear that.
Hmm.
The other two big winners I thought were President Biden and Governor DeSantis in Florida.
Well, DeSantis was to me one of the major. Yeah, Biden, yes.
Yep.
Because despite the fact that people don't approve of him, I don't know that they must approve something of his policies.
Yep. But the biggest loser, obviously, is Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And he has been on a tear, apparently. Blaming all kinds. He never accepts the blame himself.
No.
Somebody else is always at fault.
So why people lost is because they didn't listen to him.
Yeah. He said he won on election night. It was the people who, it's exactly what he said, is the people who didn't listen to him lost. He hates to accept defeat because it ruins his image as a winner. He pictures himself as a big winner. He's a winner at life.
I wonder just politically now, since I think he took the big fall, whether there will be more the Department of Justice will be more unlikely to indict him, and more likely to New York and Georgia will be more unlikely to indict him also for criminal activities.
I think New York and Georgia are already, poised to do that, and it's the Department of Justice, I think, that's probably needs to be nudged a little bit.
Well, it's funny because I think they have. If now we're still up in the air whether the Republicans will gain control of the House. There's still certain questions, and if they do, it'll be like a bare minimum.
It'll be like by 2, 3, 4 votes.
Yeah. And whether the DOJ would, well, number one, supposedly the Republicans have already, they're going to impeach Biden. I don't know for what reason they would.
That was there's another loser in this whole election cycle is Kevin McCarthy, because if you will recall, he was making the circuit, he was making the rounds on the weekend on the news shows, talking about the Republican agenda when he becomes Speaker of the House. And that may have cost them some votes, because their agenda is not exactly consumer friendly, senior friendly,
People friendly.
Yeah.
They're big business friendly, but they have the agenda of impeaching impeaching the Attorney General.
Yep. They had all those things, and I think in some cases, I think the people who went to the polls and voted, went there to say, hey, we've had enough of the crazies.
Yeah.
Let's get back to normal here.
Yeah, hopefully that is. And again, everyone was surprised. I don't think there was one pundit that I heard, post-election that said, "Oh yeah, we expected this."
I read, that's another loser in this election cycle. The polls again. I read this commentary by Nate Silver, and he talked about, there were two sets of forecasts. The deluxe forecasts picked the Republicans, and the light forecast picked the Democrats. There weren't many of the people on the light end of the issue, but and what about I also thought it was kind of strange. I don't know if you caught this, but I was complaining for several weeks that the Democrats were making a mistake, making abortion the number one issue in a lot of districts. And they were buying up a lot of ads about their opponents and their stance on abortion. And I thought they were missing the boat on these economic issues. But as it turned out, prior to the election, the economy and inflation were, let's say 43%. That was the most important thing on people's minds, and abortion was somewhere down in the teens. I'm gonna take a wild ass guess and say it was 18%. But the exit polls showed that the economy and inflation were 32%, and abortion was 28%. So that gap narrowed significantly.
And also, I thought they were wrong in expressing save democracy, but no, people were concerned about that.
Yes, they were. Yeah, that was another thing. There were an awful lot of people who went out and voted to preserve democracy. The other thing that fascinated me is that the young voters turned out in mass. They turned out, and they don't usually vote, and they're always a disappointment.
Especially in midterms.
Yeah, who cares, right?
They don't even vote
about the midterms
in presidential elections.
Yeah, and women, of course, turned out in and I heard one woman say, that there may have been a significant percentage of Republican women who are anti everything that the Democrats stand for, but they're still pro-abortion, and they're like quiet closet, abortion supporters, and they turned out to vote as well. And the turnout for this midterm election, I think we're going to find is somewhat of a record, or close
Yeah,
to it.
I haven't seen the numbers, but I know as I was going along, they were surprised at how many people showed up. And
I couldn't find a parking space when I went to vote. I had to park on the grass down the street and walk because there were no parking spaces.
well, for the first time, well, no, it's the second time I ever mailed by mail. I voted by mail. I usually like to get everything in the last day and go, to the polling place the day of the election, because I'd like to get every last bit of information in.
Yeah, right.
Because I was still not sure in our mayoralty. It was a big one between Karen
Did
and
you?
Caruso. And Caruso spent like about $120 million,
Yeah.
and we still don't know who won yet.
Oh, really? Okay, that's one that's hanging out there still.
Yeah,
Huh?
I think Rick Caruso was ahead, but I think it was like by a percentage point or two.
The other thing that I heard, and I was fascinated by the conversation, the discussion, and the fact that the Republicans, especially the evangelical Christians, they had no cause, because abortion had been overturned. Roe v. Wade had been overturned. That's not an issue. And that's what they used to spend all their time and money on in elections. So the entire movement, the entire evangelical Christian anti-abortion movement, just vanished overnight.
Well, the only way they can get that is if there's a constitutional amendment that makes abortion illegal. Now, if there is, that means all the state laws are not constitutional.
Right. Well, they already said, well,
If there was a national law, if the I think as McCarthy said, he wanted to do put together a national law.
Yes, outlawing abortion.
Right, to make it constitutional, to outlaw abortion. And if that went
Correct.
through, then ergo all the state laws would be anti-constitution.
Yeah, and
I don't think that should ever get through, but what the hell do I know? I never thought Trump would win the nomination and presidency.
might win it again.
Yeah.
McCarthy also went on the weekend talk shows and talked about raising Social Security to age 70, reducing Medicare benefits, doing away with prescription drug, prescription drug law that the president had enacted earlier this year.
But I can't see that when they say, well, they're for the people.
Well, Malcolm, that's the interesting thing, because the Republicans are trying to pawn themselves off as the party of the working people. I grew up in my household. My dad was a machinist and, a union organizer. Anybody who ever came into our house and said anything against FDR, they were not welcome. And and my father, of course, was a Democrat. And the Democrats have always championed the rights of working people.
Workers and unions.
Yeah. Yes, especially. Yes, correct. So now all of a sudden, and this is one of the things that, and you have to give credit where credit is due. This is where Trump tapped into these disgruntled, white male workers who had lost their jobs because of globalization and were, working at menial jobs or driving trucks. And not that driving trucks is a menial job, but it's a very difficult one and very strenuous. So, they've been trying to play the role here of, a champion of the working class. Meanwhile, you know, they're, they're siding with Amazon, as Amazon, the workers at Amazon in these big warehouses are trying to unionize. And the Republicans are standing with them, with Amazon, not the unions. It's an interesting dynamic. How do how does this play out? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't see how they say, the Democrats are trying to raise the taxes on the middle class. I guess if you make $125,000, you're considered middle class, because I think that's like the minimum of a single person that maybe will have some sort of tax increase. But in the meantime, I think I'm not sure. I heard Trump's tax plan, where he saved the billionaires money. Does that go out at the end of the year?
Yes, the Republicans obviously want to reinstate that.
Yeah.
They want a continuation of that tax bill, which really benefits the top 1%.
Right. I mean, the rest of us maybe get, save $100 or so, but we do save money.
I think Biden's tax plan is, the people who start paying higher taxes, significantly higher taxes, are people earning in excess of $400,000 a year.
Uh-oh, I have to worry.
Pardon?
I have to worry?
Yeah, you're going to
get. I only wish I had to worry.
You're going to get taxed at a higher rate.
Well, they had I forget what it was, which I think they lost about people making over, sort of raising the property tax of people earning over two, or the property is over, I think, or $2 or $3 million.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was defeated, and I think that was either California or Los Angeles, and it was defeated.
And the Republicans opposed, they always oppose any kind of legislation favoring unions. They
Yeah, now you're freezing.
The Green New Deal, which would have created a lot of alternate power. What happened there?
You're freezing for a while.
Are we frozen?
No, now we're okay. But what I can't see is what we're talking about, the unions. To me,
okay,
whoever controls the power abuses it. Originally, it was a manufacturer who took advantage of the workers. Then it became the unions who took advantage of the manufacturers. It's sort of whoever has the power abuses it. So it's no longer the unions aren't the champions of they're a power unto itself. And now you're frozen again. No, now are you talking or not?
I'm all right. No, I'm not talking. I'm listening to you.
Yeah, so whoever has the power abuses it. I think it's just a human nature, because the unions became too powerful.
And they were corrupt, as we learned from all kinds of accusations and trials of the Teamsters and such. But
yeah, what's the Marlon Brando? What was on the waterfront? Remember that about the dock workers? Longshoremen. And that was totally corrupt. That was controlled by the mafia.
Yeah.
And in fact, they probably still are. A lot of the I don't know if outside, but the New York unions, the garbage workers.
And the other thing that affected the other thing I think that along with their support of, and I think there's probably going to be I think there's a need in the country for organizing workers in our service sectors. I mean, these people are getting minimum wage. They're worked, very, very hard, and they have practically no benefits.
Oh yeah.
A large supermarket, um, a large supermarket or a Walmart, they may have
Now you're freezing.
three, maybe four full-time workers. The rest of them are all part-time, get no benefits.
Well, that's I think only in the last few years.
We're having difficulties here.
I think that may be like the last 10 years or so. I don't know how long that's been true. Again, I think you're starting to freeze again. I see you nodding your head, but I don't hear any words.
The words are frozen.
The words are frozen.
Yeah.
I think one of the most harmful things of an economic philosophy was, I think, started by Ronald Reagan. Trickle down.
Trickle down. Yeah, trickle down economics.
Yeah, because it's proven. I mean, it hasn't been proven, but it never happens. Any time that the major companies are making more money, they don't give it to the workers. What they do is they have it as profit, and they give their stockholders more money and their executives more money.
And they buy back stock.
And they buy back stock, so they're not the little man is not benefiting.
Right. And you know why they buy back the stock?
Because it's corporate, the big people that own the stocks.
It's because that increases the price of their stock as they buy back more, and they have all these stock options,
right,
where they can buy the stock at let's say $25, and if they can run the price up to $50,
right. And we don't know. And they say it's an American company, but I don't know if it's an American company. I don't know who owns the stock.
Correct.
So that and the thing that I still do not see is how the oil companies, the gas companies, say they're not making profit. They're not making exorbitant profit. They're not taking advantage of us by jacking up the gas prices when all of them are earning their gross income is the highest it's ever been.
The highest, yes.
Ever been in history, but they're not taking advantage of us.
Right. The same thing is true with some of the big food companies. The General Mills and Kellogg's and like that of the world. They're making record profits as well.
But they're not taking advantage of the poor consumer. I don't understand that.
And I think Biden is, he's poised to go after those people.
Now, I'd love to see. I mean, what got me a little excited is if some of his programs go through coming this next 2 years. I think if his programs go through, there'll be. I don't know if I want him to become president, but someone like him. Just not again. I'd like him to be a top advisor, but if someone that's 80 years old to be the president and be 84 when he retires.
No,
it's
barely, if you watch him now, he can barely walk.
Well,
he shuffles along. God bless him. He's doing a hell of a job, but it's time. It's time for some fresh blood in the Democratic Party. I am tired of.
I hate to see if Trump got the nomination, a 78-year-old man versus a 80-year-old man for the presidency.
Good God.
I mean, the only thing I like about DeSantis, but is he's 46.
Yeah, and the Democrats could find somebody who's relatively young out there to.
Yeah, we'll take Bernie. Yeah, Bernie will only think
Bernie's older than Biden.
I think he'll be 82.
And I listened to this 25-year-old kid who got elected to the House of Representatives from Florida. and he was refreshing. You know, it's time to turn the mantle, or hand the torch over to the next generation.
Generation, I agree. But anyway, actually, it's time for us to say goodnight or goodbye or whatever, or good morning, depending what time you're listening to us.
Yes. Okay.
But by next week, we should know better if the Dems still gain control over the House or not. It's sort of a nip and tuck.
I think it's they'll probably lose out by a couple of seats, but
And the Senate. Hopefully, we'll retain the Senate.
and then it'll be an interesting battle for Speaker of the House with the crazies, Marjorie Taylor Greene and her
Ooh.
group of.
If Marjorie Taylor Greene gets control of it, I think I might. My wife was thinking about moving out of the country. I might agree with her.
No, they're gonna challenge McCarthy.
Oh my God. As they say in Brooklyn, oy vey.
Oy vey, yes. Okay.
I will speak to you next week.
Peace.
Peace.
Oh, I gotta have my thing here to get turned off.
Okay. Don't do anything that you'll be ashamed of. Bye.
Gotta go feed the dog.